Hey guys, it's Mallard with another stamp video, and today I have two stamps that I'm going to show you in this video from the stamp show. The stamps belong to R.A. Hauser Rare Stamps. I was lucky enough to get to know this guy and his wife in their booth, and they are awesome. And he has one of the rarest stamps I have ever seen in person. Keep watching to see what that stamp is. All right, how you doing?
Very well, sir. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. So tell us what we got here.
Well, what we have here is a rare stamp from the United States, printed 1869. It was their first actual attempt at doing bicolor stamps on the high values of U.S. postage. Had not been done before, and some of the things that people didn't realize were that you could misorient the colors, creating very interesting errors that were not immediately discovered. As a matter of fact, the 15 cent, which we're going to look at here in just a second, the 24 cent green and violet, and the 30 cent carmine and blue all had inversions on them, and some of them were not discovered until well into the 1880s, believe it or not, because people weren't looking for this stuff. But this is the 15 cent type 2 issue of 1869, and initially, now let's say the center is inverted, and it's essentially the scene of the landing of Columbus, which is interesting because this particular picture, if you will, or engraving, the actual subject matter for this is a 29-foot wide painting in the Capitol Rotunda in Washington, D.C. And James Smiley, who was the miniature engraver for New York banknote, or National Banknote Company, produced this, and it's only 3/4 of an inch long by 3/8 of an inch high. And every figure is visible there. There are 43 definable figures. If you get down there with a 20 power glass, you can see them all. The quality of the engraving is amazing. But on to the invert, the actual error. These were not discovered right away. Obviously, they wouldn't have been used on mail if people would have understood what they had in their possession. And the way this happened initially was, and they call it an inverted center, but it really wasn't, on these bicolored stamps, because this had never been done before in American postage stamps. These stamps were actually printed, the frame, the exterior part that says 15 cents, was printed second. The actual picture that you see in the middle, the blue picture that is shown as inverted or upside down, was printed first. So the truth of it is, it's actually an inverted frame, but your eye always goes to it with the orientation of the outside border being the true actual part of it, which is right side up. And your eyes will tell you then the center is inverted. So that's the way they produce it with the book now, is to explain it as an inverted center. There are fewer than 110 copies of this known. After 160 years, if 150 actually, 52, and they find a few more every year or two. The census has gone up. They've actually found another 25 copies of this in the last 30 years that have been in private collections that people didn't realize they'd been held for 150 years or thereabout, or 100 plus years. And now they're coming out in some of the collections. They're extremely rare. The total production of that issue was less than 800,000 stamps. So you can take and figure how many of these there are. If you take that 103 stamps, which they know of today, against that almost 800,000 that they issued. And some of these have been lost, of course. There's people that threw those away too because they didn't know what they were. But extremely rare stamp. The regular issue of this used books for $190. This particular one with the inverted center books for $22,500.
Awesome. So please, can you also explain why it's important to get stamps like this certified?
Well, to guarantee the legitimacy and the authenticity of the stamp, because there are some very committed mechanics that over the years have produced things like this, and they're fakes. There's always been a cohort of people that in any sort of a collectible, they'll produce something that's fake in order to get the big money and not have to really get the original article. So getting that actually gives you a third party that vouches for the authenticity and the reality of it being what you say that it is. And that really is helpful for any very expensive stamp or any collectible like this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Certainly.
sharing this awesome stamp, and I'm jealous it's in your collection. It's awesome.
It can be had for $19,500 today.
I'd have to sell everything I own for that. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well today. How are you?
I'm doing well. So what do you got for us today?
Well, we got another issue here from the late 19th century, U.S. classic philately. This is part of what is known as the Trans-Mississippi or Omaha issue. It was our second commemorative issue. It was our first commemorative issue printed by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, and it spans from 1 cent to $2 in valuation. The $2 is the high value of the set. Between the Columbians, the earlier series, and these were the highest value commemorative stamps that we ever printed in the United States. We didn't exceed or match these values ever again after this issue was printed in 1898. And there's a few curious things about the $2. Every one of the stamps was printed on a single day in 1898. They printed the entire supply of $2 Trans-Mississippi or Omahas on June 3rd, 1898. All of them were printed in a single day. And this is a plate numbered block, top margin block. They come in top or bottom margin, blocks of 4 or blocks of 6, all extremely rare. This is the rarest general issued commemorative stamp as far as a plate number block that can be had. In the total population, I think the plate block of 6 is 6 are known, and plate block of 4, I think we're somewhere around 10 or 12 plate blocks of this are known. It is the most expensive by catalog value plate block of commemoratives in a plate block of 4 in commemorative U.S. philately. This is currently cataloged at $100,000. They come, of course, in various conditions. Most of them do have perf separations. This one does, between the top and bottom pairs, kind of a typical thing. I think an aspect of the paper over the years it dried and some of the perforations cracked. But in any case, the population of blocks available, this is extremely scarce. Top margin's always the more preferable of the positions, and centering definitely fine to very fine. They had very tight margins on this issue as well. To find this particular stamp in the Trans-Mississippi issue with full margins is nearly impossible. And you could look at an up premium, though the stamp catalogs for $1,900 for a single that is hinged, a perfectly centered stamp with ample to full margins, well balanced, could run you 10 times that. You could run $20,000 for a single if it's an honest stamp with no alterations. It's that scarce to try to find this with full margins on it. Typically you get what you see. It's very tight to just touching, and many times they're actually into the design. Orange-brown color, over the years they'll typically sulfurize, or they call it oxidize, and they'll turn a dull brown. Can actually degrade down to a black color because of the materials used in the ink. This one's quite a lot fresher than that, and again, with the richness of color and the fairly well balanced centering for this issue, this is an extremely scarce plate block. And as I say, I don't believe in the layout of plate block of 4 there's any more than a dozen of them in population now. It's a very, very rare piece, and among the rarest of United States commemoratives right here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're certainly welcome.